Because the health and fitness world can get a little nutty, it's time for Body Kindness. Today we're going to talk about mindfulness and how paying attention may be the most important step you'll take on your path to body kindness.
And we're launching a new challenge and introducing a new book to our book club.
Hello and welcome to Body Kindness, where happiness and health begin by being good to yourself. I'm your host and your coach, Rebecca Scritchfield, and I am elated to have my very good friend, Bernie Salazar, here again with me. Hi, Bernie.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in. Becca, great to hear your voice.
Yes, it is great to connect with you. We've had a couple weeks since we've last talked. But truthfully, our last episode has been on my mind pretty much nonstop. So I appreciate the chance to reconnect. We had been focusing, as you know, on intuitive eating and emotional eating for our first book club, and it rightly deserves a lot of conversation. I do think we'll be bringing that up again in the future. It's just a key element of how we practice body kindness. But there were some things you said on the last episode that I wanted to, jump off of for our topic for this week. So I'm just going to kind of rehash where we're at and get the conversation going.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so when we were talking about emotional eating, it actually, our conversation took me by a bit of a surprise. And I think what I got out of it was almost just a conversation around, well, I remember when I used to eat emotionally, but now, no. And then you dropped what, kind of felt like dropping the bomb on me. You said, I feel numb. And if you actually go back and listen, you'll kind of notice that my pause and I just go, and that's kind of therapist speak for I need to fill the dead air and think about this for a minute. Because, and we eventually got there with about, that numbness is a type of a feeling and really a true lack of attunement, which from intuitive eating is a connection to your body. And connection is one of the three core body kindness pillars. We need to connect if we're going to care. If we're going to practice self-care, if we're going to take actions in line with our values, if we're going to build habits that live with us the rest of our lives, we need to be able to connect. It is a core aspect of body kindness. So it was just fascinating to me. And of course, I understand being a new dad and, the schedules come up and there's lots of things that come up. And what we touched on too in the last episode was just kind of the downside of doing the dieting stuff and the overthinking was just the sheer exhaustion from the food rules, dieting, wearing down your brain, that it really does happen to a lot of people. You just disconnect from it. And then the goals go out the window, the planning goes out the window, and it is like a domino effect. One thing leads to another. And then you get to a point, which is where I think you're at, which is just you do the habits that are your habits. But when it comes to having a good sense of where you're at with food and intuitive eating and food as being a way you take care of yourself, it's just blank. So at any rate, it makes perfect sense to me that this is going on. But it really kind of shed light that you're definitely not alone in this situation, and it could be really good for us to talk about how we rebuild a connection. And we do that through mindfulness. So that's going to be our topic of today. And I purposefully didn't share much about it before you because I wanted to just really try to get your gut reaction and ask you just off the cuff, what are your thoughts when I say mindfulness? What do you think I mean?
Well, when you say mindfulness, I'm thinking, I guess thinking about what it is um, that you're doing to nourish yourself, um, being present would be another way that I would describe being mindful. Um, a lot of being in tune with yourself would be another way that I would describe mindfulness. But it's so funny because when you here I am and I'm doing my little pause, and it's not a therapist pause, it's just a Bernie pause. Um, when you say mindfulness, to be honest, the first thing that comes to my mind is how am I treating others? Mindfulness. How am I get where we're at and what we're discussing here, but who I am naturally when you say the word mindfulness, I'm thinking, are you being kind to others? Are you being supportive of others? Are you being positive to others and for others? Are you being considerate of somebody else's emotions, feelings, needs, wants? So, yeah, you listeners out there, Rebecca is amazingly tricky because she didn't send me some of these show notes, and now I'm realizing why. And I do love these candid conversations. But yes, if we're going to have this very candid discussion, when I think mindfulness, I think of my approach towards others.
Okay. Well, everything you said, I agree with. Mindfulness essentially is, like you said, presence. It is an awareness of being able to describe what's happening, what's going on right now. Um, in order to be mindful, it requires to be able to sense the present moment. And the way our brains work, we spend a lot of time thinking about the past, about what we did before, or we think about the future, what's coming up next. And we actually spend very little of our time. I think the past around stat is around 5% of our thoughts are in the present moment. So much to the point that we have to exert effort to be mindful and to be in the present moment. And you even saying your honest answer about, well, I think about how I'm treating others. That is mindfulness, because in order to be having those thoughts, you first have to pause and you have to remind yourself that you care very deeply about your relationships to others. And that mindfulness is when you stop to think about things that you really care about, and observe. Observe is another good word. Also practice. It is a practice. You don't reach some sort of mindfulness destination. Here I am with the Buddha. I'm mindful,
Nice.
Which is why I asked you about it. A lot of people misunderstand it. They think it's, oh, mindfulness is definitely meditation, and I'm not going to sit on a meditation pillow and fold my hands and go, and that's, while I support that, and I think that meditation is definitely something I'm going to be talking about later, because there's some good research I'm going to share on it. And, it's just, that doesn't have to be extreme either. But the reason why mindfulness is so, so important is, we're eventually going to do a podcast where we talk more about habits in detail and what it really takes. But you cannot begin to fix problems you aren't aware of. The starting point is awareness. And in order to have awareness, you have to pause. You have to ask yourself, what's going on? What's going on that matters? What's going on that I care about? What means something to me? And that is mindfulness, being open and aware of just, hey, what the heck is happening?
Well, I was going to say, and I'd like to add to that, because I have had those types of conversations with myself throughout this journey. I think honesty is a big component in there as well. When I find that I'm most honest with where I'm at, um, is when I feel I'm able to identify maybe what I need to start giving more attention to in my life. Because I'll admit, I sometimes lie to myself. I tell little brown lies to myself to cover up maybe a truth that I don't want to accept or am unwilling to really look at. So I would throw that in there as well, Rebecca.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It is, as soon as you said it, I looked back at my note that I took when I re-listened to our last episode, because I had written down the word trust. Because we had gotten in a conversation about one of our listeners sat in Chicago was saying that she didn't trust herself, and you could really relate to having times where you didn't trust yourself. And really, body kindness is about building a trust and an alliance. You build trust through the practice of body kindness. And really, at the core of body kindness is a commitment to your self-awareness and being mindful. And that's how I created the pillars of love, connection, and caring. It is a mindfulness-based practice. And so, you're absolutely right. You don't have trust or an alliance with yourself. You don't have those things until you are willing to practice honesty. And that means facing things, facing truths, which opens up the bucket of pain.
Oh, yeah.
Pain, discomfort. Those are feelings and emotions that we don't want to feel. We have to be vulnerable. We have to be open. And when we have those negative feelings, it hurts and we'd rather run. So we could tell ourselves the white lie or the brown lie, as you say, we could tell ourselves these little lies because we don't have to attach. We don't have to approach the situation. We can avoid. And when we're avoiding, we're not being mindful. And so you're absolutely right to be open and a willingness to be honest. And that means being okay with experiencing pain. So I've talked previously about all emotions are good, even bad ones. Emotions give you information. So even the negative, bad, painful emotions that say, oh, this really hurts, yes. But if you let the hurt be there, let that uncomfortableness be there, maybe there's guilt, maybe there's shame. And just a quick reminder of the difference. Guilt is I did a bad thing. So it's okay to feel guilty if you did something, you said screw it and you ate emotionally. You said screw it and you skipped a workout. It's okay to say I feel bad about this, because guilt can be a motivator when you say this thing I feel bad about is not in line with the person I'm trying to be. And that's okay. Self-compassion. I have permission to flub. I have permission to make mistakes. I'm a human being, right? Mm-hmm. But shame is the bad one. Shame is perfectionism. Shame is I'm a bad person. And shame is locked with judgment and inner critic and perfectionism. And that line of thinking, that approach does not lead to body kindness, because you can't become the person you want to be. You can't live your values when you're beating yourself up all the time. So it's a really interesting, you don't get to any of that without mindfulness, which is why we're talking about it now, because you have to pause and be willing to scan and say, what the heck is going on right now that I care about? It does mean getting in touch with thoughts and feelings. You have to have permission to feel what you're feeling and to think how you're thinking, and just mindfully observe it. You take away the power of the thoughts and feelings when you do this. It's almost like, you and I are sitting on the beach. Let's really dream here, parents of young kids.
I like that.
We're sitting on the beach. Oh, look, there's a wave. Oh, look, there's a cloud in the sky. Oh, look, this kind of neutral observing. Oh, look, there's people walking along the beach holding hands. Or we're not on the beach. Oh, look, there's cars driving by. You can really take away the extreme power of these intense thoughts and feelings, once you notice them. Again, going back to you and numbness, numbness is like a step before. I'm not even willing to acknowledge that there's thoughts and feelings in the room right now. I'm just
Yeah.
numb. And I said you were not alone. No wonder you're at a place of numbness when you were at the point of, unless I'm killing myself ready to puke on a treadmill, it's not good enough. Or unless my food is so clean and empty of anything positive, what's the calories, what's the protein, what's the salt, you washed all that away in your desire to be healthy. You washed it all away. And you said last episode, like, I still can't taste a hamburger that reminds me of childhood. It's because so much of what a hamburger means has temporarily been wired out of your brain. And so part of your journey back is to continue to exploring hamburgers and the taste and the mood and the emotion that feels good again. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I feel like you want to say something.
I never thought about it that way, but I could definitely see that that internal battle that you just described truly taking place, and maybe that is one of the reasons why I wasn't able to find that connection with. Again, in my case, it happened to have been a hamburger. It was just something that I remember looking for and never finding, and kind of left that alone a while back. But I do really appreciate the way that you just presented that to me, because, yeah, I mean, not only did I have that experience where I had to be going all out in the gym and overthink what I was putting in my body so much so that at times it was exhausting and not enjoyable. Yeah, I can see how that could lead to this feeling of numbness. And I remember when we were talking about how what we were going to discuss on our last podcast. I was genuinely worried about what that conversation was going to look like, because I knew I was feeling numb to it. And here we're talking about emotional eating, and I'm like, well, where do I fall? Gosh, this is sad. I can't even say I'm emotionally eating because I'm void of that, or I felt as though I was. And I know that there's so many listeners out there that are experiencing this in different ways. I've spoken with some friends recently who have shared with me a little bit about their emotional eating and the fact that they weren't sure how to be mindful. So I'm really hoping that those wonderful friends of mine are tuning into this show in particular, so we can kind of, and I guess in a more kind way, define what it means to be mindful.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a question for the sake of where you're at in your journey, the other listeners that you care very deeply about, which I appreciate. Do you think that you are in a place where you can just kind of acknowledge the numbness, thank it for being there, see the purpose? It really did have a beneficial purpose. It stopped you from doing very harmful, crazy things, right?
Yeah.
So truthfully, thank it for being there, in some ways saving you from, dangerous, disordered things, and start the process of, walking away from it. So in the sense of it's going to be there until it's no longer needs to be there for you. You're not trying to, shun the numbness. It's kind of, again, this mindfulness observing, okay, I'm noticing numbness, but let it be there until it doesn't need to be there anymore. But just almost kind of closing that chapter, like, now I get it. I see where, for better or for worse, I'm a human being, and there are things about my past that I don't think are good for me in my future and the person I want to be. And I see how numbness was beneficial, but now I want to start the process of connecting again.
No, that's very interesting. I never thought to thank numbness. I will give that a go. but yeah, I guess I never really thought as numbness as even something that could, I guess, had its own role and was serving to do something potentially even positive. Um, yeah, you've definitely have me thinking now. So that's interesting, and I will see how I work this out with that.
Sure.
Uh,
Well, just to highlight for you, because you're questioning the positivity of it. Um, you know, things could have gotten, much worse in disordered behaviors. The numbness prevented that, and the numbness is leading to connection again. So, do you see what I'm saying? There's the positive. It's you creating your health and happiness and your body kindness future. The numbness needed to be there to bridge the two.
and for our listeners out there, I am shaking my head in
He is. I see
agreement.
him in the video.
I
He's like,
am. I
okay.
am shaking my head in agreement. I know that doesn't really come through here in our podcast, but what Rebecca is sharing with me is has left me in a very pensive state right now. But yes, I would. I'm willing to hear what it is you're saying,
Okay.
and yeah, let me internalize that. Let's revisit
Okay.
this one
Cool.
for
Okay.
sure.
So, well, in honestly, even noticing the numbness that you were able to do in the last episode just shows your skill set. It shows your strength and your capabilities that you are able to tune in because you were able to identify the numbness. And this is very important for like motivating and behavior change and everything, to be able to look at experiences and examples that show your strength. So you already have it in you to pause and notice and name things. And that is what we're going to work at initially with this mindfulness exercise. So, being the new month, the monthly challenge that we're going to launch, and just as a reminder to new listeners and everything, we have a challenge each month that we follow throughout the podcast. So it'll be 2 podcast episodes, but then we also have my email list, which you can join at RebeccaScritchfield.com, and it's free. And there is an email that you get that is focused on the challenge of the month. And I do 1 to 4, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. 2 to 4 emails a month. So I try to email once a week, but I give myself a bye. If I miss a week, just because I can't get it done, then you might not get one every single week. But I really do try to shoot just a brief email note that gives things to read, motivations, quotes, support, anything that you need to help yourself focus on the challenge. So for those who want to join us, it's going to be called Mindful March.
I like it.
Exactly.
Love
It's
it.
hashtagable. It's tweetable.
It
So the hashtag is Mindful March. And you can use that anywhere on social media. Connect with us. Let us know what you're doing to be mindful. Be on the email list for more cues and guidance and support. We're both all over social media giving encouragement in addition to the podcast. So however you join us for this month would be wonderful. We've got lots of resources and support for you. And I'm going to, gently mindfulness can truly be anything that you need to practice body kindness, but I'm going to gently guide us toward this idea of practice noticing things. So, and specifically thoughts and feelings. So I alluded to that when we were kind of on the beach, like, oh, look at the clouds. Oh, look at the waves come in. That's all you really need to do to practice mindfulness is just you're noticing, you're observing. What we're doing is we're taking away the power of the thoughts and feelings. It's okay to have thoughts. You don't have to try to change them. You don't have to chase it away. You can have a bad thought, an unhelpful thought. You can have a negative emotion that doesn't feel good, and you could say, ooh, wow, I'm noticing a lot of self-judgment right now. But just get into the habit of noticing. It's great if you can tune it into thoughts you're having about your habits, what you are or aren't doing, your body, anything related to body kindness, food, fitness, sleep, stress, relationships with others. I mean, really, all those things impact how you take care of yourself anyway. I encourage everyone, and you, Bernie, and myself, I'm doing this. Trust me, I am on the mountain with you for practicing mindfulness. You never get there. You improve and you get better at it, but it's an ongoing journey. But I encourage you to make it a daily practice. So don't just wait for it. Set the intention of, okay, I'm taking a few minutes right now to be mindful and just notice. I'm noticing myself doing the dishes, and I'm noticing that I'm bored. I'm noticing that I'm thinking about food. Well, let me kind of tune in. Well, it's almost lunchtime and I am getting a bit hungry. So have some specific dedicated time where you will practice noticing things every single day. Share what you're doing. By making it a daily intentional practice, you will automatically, without even trying, be more mindful in other ways. Does that make sense in what I'm saying?
No, it totally makes sense. And for all of our listeners out there, especially a lot of the people that I know are tuning in, who I know them personally, I really would like to make sure that you are giving this challenge a go. This is something that I feel, given the conversations that I've had, Rebecca, with some very important and special individuals in my life, this challenge really could serve to start opening up their mind and their awareness of where they're at.
Right, exactly. And the goal for this as a challenge for the entire month, the way that this connects is like what I said earlier. You can't begin to fix problems or take a new direction without having an awareness. And sometimes an awareness can be very painful, and because it opens you up to vulnerabilities. And this is just a daily practice of paying attention to what is going on, and think about, okay, something I care about is at stake here. So, I care about building a healthy relationship with food. I care about stopping my emotional eating, and I've observed that planning is important, so I'm noticing I really don't want to plan right now. I'd rather lay down and watch TV, or, I'd rather do a million other things. I'm noticing procrastination. Don't judge it. Let procrastination be there. It's just a cloud passing in the wind, Let those things be there. But what you'll see is, if you think about something I care about's at stake here, allowing yourself to notice the procrastination, notice that you're not planning, and noticing that it impacts something you care about, that can serve, without a lot of extra effort on your part, as a reminder, as a nudge, and hopefully a very self-compassionate way. Hey, you know what? Yeah, we don't want to really do this, but I also want the benefit of eating balanced meals today. So you know what? For better or worse, I'm going to plan. And I think you'll start to see through the month that you get better at accomplishing the goals that you've already set for yourself by taking it back to step one and letting yourself be aware. Oh, I'm not hungry, but I'm reaching in the bag for chips. Okay, I don't have to judge this. I'm making a mistake. Why don't I just take my hand out of the bag and fold it up and let me go do something nice for myself? So you will naturally, without having to memorize some big crazy book of rules, by being mindful, if you think about, what do I care about? What matters to me? You have an inner guide, an inner wisdom, a caretaker that knows, okay, I think this is the better choice for me. But we're going to start with mindfulness and let that other stuff evolve kind of naturally within you, within me, within every listener. And I'm really excited about starting the challenge, about giving some stuff through email, through social media, and then on the next podcast, checking in on our progress with it, and maybe really linking mindfulness more directly to how that's going to connect to building lasting habits. But for now, we're noticing thoughts and words. We're noticing our emotions. We're making room for it all, letting it be there. It's probably trying to help us in some way, but then we're just trying to make a choice that feels like we're being good to ourselves. Make
You know,
sense?
and one, yeah, oh, absolutely. And one thing that I noticed too, Rebecca, in your explanation of this challenge is the fact that not only are we acknowledging and taking the time to notice things, but even in your explanation to me about the emotion of numbness, we are looking for the positive in everything around us, because I know naturally for me, it's so easy to go towards the negative and how it's negatively impacting myself. And I have said this to people in my life before, you know, it's just the way your outlook, the way you look at things. And I really like the way that you explain this, because it has forced me in the course of this conversation to start shifting to the positive in things again.
Mm-hmm.
And as a guy, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there, as a guy, when you hear mindfulness and tuning in with yourself, there's some kind of a opposition to it initially, but I think that that has to do with the fact that maybe we find this to be a very hard exercise because it questions um, maybe who we perceive ourselves to be, you know, the manliness, the not, you know, truthfully, it's probably because this is a lot harder than it seems.
It is.
And that's what I want our listeners to know. Guess what? I this they don't call it a challenge for nothing. We this is going to test your ability to first of all, you know, really become more so in touch with yourself, with the moment. And I think for me personally, one of the challenges in this challenge is going to be retraining myself to look at the positive in circumstances where I would have gravitated towards the negative.
Yeah. Well, just a couple of points to send your way related to that. All very, very good. Humans are naturally pessimists. We've evolved that way. I mean, we're around because our ancestors were really, really afraid of the lions and tigers and bears that were chasing them. The ones who were chill, like, let's be friends, they got eaten. They were dinner. So we are
Yes.
naturally pessimists. And in all interaction, we are feeling creatures where our very first instinct, we're making a snap decision. Is this a friend or enemy, friend or foe? Am I safe or am I in danger? And even like when you and I see each other, we have a memory. This is, oh, that's Bernie. He's my friend. I'm safe. I'm good. You know, walking down the street and a stranger, oh, am I safe or am I in danger? So it is a
Yeah.
basic, we're trying to perceive what is going on, and then we make sense of it through our thoughts and our beliefs, which is based on past experiences. So it's natural to be pessimistic. It's in our DNA. And then genetically, some people are more pessimists than optimists. The most important thing to know is that optimism can be cultivated, and you could be pessimistic about certain things and more optimistic about others. So, but what you brought up was actually something that's called benefit finding, which is choosing to try to look for the good in something. It's not Pollyanna. I can't stand Pollyanna shit. I cannot stand the, oh, just read this quote and everything will be magical. Ugh. I really, there's a lot of unhelpful, quote, gurus out there. You know, you don't get better by taking bubble baths. You don't get better by reading positivity quotes. You have to be able to be authentic. But those things can be helpful, and mindfulness can be helpful. And so it's really about you cultivating the kind of person you want to be. It is within your control because you make the choices. And I think you saying, ooh, I don't know, this mindfulness thing, I'm having doubts, practice your skill by I'm observing, like clouds floating by, me telling myself this is a bunch of bull crap, this is hocus pocus, this shit ain't gonna work, and you just observe that. That's part of it. And you take away their power. You let it float by you, and you still make the choice to participate in the challenge anyway. And that's exactly it. So I'm glad you had these self-doubt thoughts. Notice them and move forward anyway, because you are an open person who wants to explore how being mindful can impact your health, your happiness, your relationships, and that's why you're doing it. Make
Oh,
sense?
absolutely. I mean, I've literally tried everything except for truly being kinder to myself and finding ways to do that. So you're absolutely right. It's so funny how we will trust an infomercial that comes on at 3 o'clock at night, but we won't take the advice of someone who truly has gone through it or professionally knows about it and is coming from a place of truly caring for our listeners. It's almost as though the more sane information you put out there, the more people want to resist it. But let it, if they tell you to, literally, cluck like a chicken and flap your arms like a duck, people are willing to try that craze. So let's all get crazy together and be mindful. How about
I
that?
love it. I love it. And research would support this effort. I'm just going to I'll share the link in the show notes, and I'll try to share a few others. But the bottom line is this. Mindfulness is a topic that has been studied over and again. And there's a magazine and a website and blog I love called Mindful. And so that's a great resource. But this was actually shared in the New York Times Well blog recently. And it was, just to kind of give you an idea, it was a small study, but it was 35 unemployed men and women. So they did not have jobs. And they did brain scans and they took blood. Half of the subjects, they gave them a formal mindfulness meditation at a retreat center. They were the test group. And then everyone else got like fake mindfulness. It was a total sham. They called it mindfulness, but it was focusing on relaxing. It was focused on distracting yourself from worries and stress. Okay. So true mindfulness and meditation skills. And then the other one was, they thought they were getting a treatment. Like, let's relax. We're going to distract ourselves from the stress, right? So, and one example would be both groups did stretching exercises, like to relax. But the mindfulness group also paid attention to body sensations, including unpleasant ones, okay? Anyway, I'll let you read the full, but here's the gist of it. And it was only a 3-day intervention, so this is not that long. At the end of the 3 days, everyone, no matter what group they were in, everyone said, I feel better. I feel refreshed, and I am better able to handle the stress of unemployment. But then they did brain scans, and here's what they found. The only difference in brain activity was the group that underwent the mindfulness meditation. So the other group, while they perceived benefit, which great, that because they felt better able to handle it too. That's a good thing. But what truly caused the brain to change was doing the mindfulness meditation work. And it was 3 stinking days. So we got a month. We have a whole month of stuff that we're going to be sharing. So when we say this literally changes your brain, there are very smart researchers studying this. And you don't have to be Buddha. You don't have to be a hippie. You don't have to be a crazy guru person. You just have to be open to maybe I need to pay attention to the present moment, what's going on. And if you notice, even in this study, they had permission to feel things, even unpleasant things. So this is what it's all about. And I swear it's life-changing. It's changed my life personally. It has changed the lives of my clients when they're more open to seeing these things. The real work, it's not about the food. It's not about eating cottage cheese at 12 o'clock. It's not about the protein. Cottage cheese has protein, blah, blah, blah. But it's not really about the food. It's how we perceive it, how it fits in our life. Same thing with exercise and all our other body kindness things. It's about stuff that's underneath there, and we can't even begin to dig around until we pause and we're more mindful. So that is why we're doing this. I will share the Mindful website. I will share this study in the show notes. Transitioning to the book club announcement. Very interestingly, there's a ton of great books on mindfulness. I actually want to recommend for the month of March for listeners to either read or get the audiobook version, and then you can listen while you walk or exercise. The book is called The Upside of Stress, and it's by Dr. Kelly McGonigal, and she's a Stanford professor. This book changed the way I thought of stress. We'll cover it in a different episode because it deserves it. But the bottom line is, I used to be one of these people that used to tell people that stress is something you can't handle. It's going to kill you. And she just completely flips this idea of stress, and that it's actually there to help you grow stronger and be resilient and give a beneficial purpose. And this book isn't strong in mindfulness, but I took her classes as well. She has online classes as well. And mindfulness is at the center of her approach. And truthfully, stress is what we blame as causing our negative emotions anyway. And so I think this is a perfect book because we all experience stress. It's when we say we can't handle it that we then go to bad coping behaviors. So we skip workouts, we drink too much, we eat too much. And so I think for the terms of what I'm trying to get across with body kindness and being good to ourselves, I think this book, again, it's called The Upside of Stress by Kelly McGonigal, and I'll share the link in the show notes. This book, if you read through it and you do your mindfulness practice, I think you're going to see a lot of connections happen. And what we'll do in the next episode is we'll kind of talk a little bit about the first half of the book and how we're able to marry what she's talking about in the book to our mindfulness practice. Okay?
Sounds good. And especially because that's always something that I hear, from some of our listeners, as well as some of my personal reactions is, I'm just too stressed out to do anything positive for myself. So this is a great book, and I do encourage our listeners to jump on in and participate in our book club.
Cool. Well, I do want to share one quick newsy thing because I guess, I just need to say this. So we'll leave it at that. So I don't know if you heard about the model Ashley Graham. She's classified as a plus-size model, but she made it on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
I did see that.
Okay. And so, I mean, obviously she's a model, so she's obviously beautiful, but in our sick culture that does not respect size diversity, there's been a lot of people who have just not been supportive of her, and she's my girl crush right now. I love her. She, it's funny because I'm just now really getting to know her, and I saw she was interviewed in Health Magazine. I will share that link, and I was like, oh, please make this be good, because I was doubtful. Ashley, I was doubting you. Like, maybe she's going to say something that I don't think is helpful, but her tips were actually very good. She is just legit for body positivity, and she is truly beautiful inside and out. But what really, really disgusted me was that another former swimsuit issue cover model, Cheryl Tiegs, had nothing nice to say about it, basically. And it's been plastered on People and E, and I'll share the link reluctantly, but she basically said, oh, well, I think it's awful. I think she's glorifying obesity. And I believe Dr. Oz, we should all have 25-inch waists, which, hello, Cheryl, shame on you. That should be, telling enough that if she's spreading, Dr. Oz miracles, that's what we should all be following. But it really bothers me, Bernie, because, you've got a girl, I've got two girls. It's really sickening that we live in this world where a woman will publicly bash another woman based on her weight and shape. She has no idea of her health. And Ashley talks about, look, I've been a size 10, I've been a size 18, and I've been active throughout. And, maybe we don't know all there is to know about Ashley Graham. But Cheryl Tiegs coming in, a fellow woman and a fellow model. If models can't get along and support each other, what are the rest of us supposed to think? So I am really, really pissed that Cheryl doesn't see that you can be healthy at a variety of sizes. Go ahead. I know you want to say
No,
something.
no, no. I'm just going to jump on in. First of all, Cheryl Tiegs is a name from way back when, and let's face it, publicity, whether it be good, bad, a thing or not, is going to bring her name back into existence. So that's just literally a blast from the past, and why not try to put your name out there in the media, get it out there. Second, I also, and you might get frustrated to with me about this. Um, Cheryl Tiegs is also coming from a very ancient way of thinking and the way that models were told they had to look. Now, she's probably internalized it so much so that it literally is who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not defending her because I am such a huge fan of the Sports Illustrated cover, not only because of how it shows true beauty and body diversity, but like you said, I have a daughter. I am such a lucky man because my wife looks just like Ashley.
Actually,
Uh,
she does. That's a good point. We should do a
she
side by
really,
side.
yeah,
Yeah,
she's
both
she's
beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous, and I'm so glad that she's chosen to be a part of my life instead of travel the world and be on covers herself. But that's another point. But you know what? I want to applaud Ashley, and I hope that she continues to be out there and be an advocate and spread positive messages. And I would just like for us to. I don't even want to discuss Cheryl anymore because I think that that's just it's a last little breath by a
Yeah.
by a fish that's
Yeah,
long been
and
gone.
I mean, I guess in my expression of empathy that you showed quite well is that you can only go as far as you are able to go. And
Think about it,
yeah,
Rebecca.
I
Not just
know.
that, it was such a protected. It's such a little club, this whole world of models and supermodels. And of course, it's going to be exclusive. Lord forbid we have a woman with curves be called a model.
Well, yeah.
That goes against everything that every time Cheryl starved herself in the past,
Mm-hmm.
it's going against everything that she fought and scratched for. And it's not to take anything away from this particular woman either, because the last thing I want to do is be negative towards another human being. But I'm pretty sure, and we know this for a fact, that in that field, in that profession, they have put themselves through some atrocities to
Mm-hmm.
try to be the picture of beauty. So yeah, I could see it being a slap in her face of her generation. But guess what, Cheryl? Times are they are changing.
Changing, yeah.
They are changing, and
Exactly.
thanks that I'm so happy they are.
Yeah, and yeah, because she's basically saying that we only have room for the thin ideal, and if you can't conform to the ideal, then you're not worth being in the magazine or the cover. And she even said that she liked someone else's photo in the issue better, and it was clearly shaming. It was clearly stigmatizing. Ashley, she doesn't need any help for people. People are going to her support, but she is, I can tell, is confident enough that she doesn't really need, other people to stand up for her. She exudes confidence. She is a role model, but I do think it's a very telling example that, people also don't want to be wrong. And for Cheryl Tiegs to, who knows, maybe this issue, she'll think about it more and she will come out and she will publicly say, I was wrong. Here's what I've learned. I mean, because that would be really valuable. But at the end of the day, why are we commenting on other people's bodies at all in general? Why is it a bad thing to represent a diversity of shapes and sizes? She is a model with a legitimate agency, not even, I think we should get rid of the plus size as a label. But at the end of the day, she has proved her worthiness in her job and profession. And, it just shows that Cheryl is so close-minded that she would have to open up her mind and say, you know what? I might have biases against people of size. And I might have judgments, and that would be her facing her own pain and
Well,
vulnerability and guilt from how she's treated herself in the past.
absolutely, but I can guarantee you, and I say this straightforward, we may have listeners that have that same view towards beauty. And, we have to think about it. Well, why do we have that view, and what put that there, and what is that based off of? And is this the reason why I can't be kinder to myself?
Yep.
And the truth is, listen, if you have, Ashley curves, then more power to you. That's great. If we can find the beauty in ourselves and not base it solely on what society has over the decades and centuries kind of instilled in us as beauty, then, maybe we're going to have a better chance at living the healthiest, happiest life that we can. So let's go ahead and reevaluate where all these thoughts and biases come from.
Yeah, it is a great point, and it's definitely something that we should dedicate an entire future episode to talking about. But just to not leave everyone completely hanging, before we wrap up, that I saw a very interesting documentary last night called The Illusionists, and hopefully that's free online. I'll look for it for show notes. Writing down now. But anyway, one of the most interesting things that came out of it was one of the person who was interviewed, I think it was Jean Kilbourne, and she said, the consumer industry, like they need consumers, and a confident consumer is a bad consumer. They will sell stuff to thin people and fat people. As long as you feel inadequate, they have something to sell. And so I have seen women, mostly women are in my practice, I'll be honest, but a variety of shapes and weights having similar insecurities. And that is what sells. If we can make you believe you're not good enough unless, then we've got something to sell you. And it goes across weights and shapes. I'm not into skinny shaming either. I see a lot of people come out and say, "Oh, well, now we're now we're skinny shaming." And the truth of it is, we're not, because thin is the cultural ideal. If you fit the model of thinness, you just don't have the same level of suffering as someone who doesn't. So, while I don't identify as a thin person, I bet you if you put me in a lineup, people would say that I have thin privilege over a lot of other size women. And so, I will only know what my level of suffering has been on body image based on internal experiences. I don't have the external pressure that other women of larger sizes who do. And it's a big topic. It's a big issue. But for now, we could say boo to Cheryl Tiegs, and you should apologize. And maybe by the time this is out, she will. But yay for Ashley Graham, and I'll be sharing all her stuff in the show notes. And yeah, you're right. Like, we've got to start working on being okay with who we are so that we can work on the kind of person we want to be.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to go ahead and reiterate what you said. I'm going to phrase it differently. From one beautiful woman to another beautiful woman, you should definitely apologize. let's celebrate the fact that times are changing and evolving, and this is a positive step for the parents of young girls and also for women in general.
That sounds good. Well, be sure to tune in to the next episode where we're going to check in on our mindfulness challenge practice. And good luck to you, Bernie, and good luck to me. I need it just as much as you do.
Absolutely. And good luck to our listeners with this month's challenge. And remember to be kind and mindful with yourself.